Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here tonight with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Really good. I mean, if you were in that camp of people who thought the Oilers could build on their Final Four showing last year and be a pretty dominant team in the NHL, and I was in that camp, I thought they might be one of the top three teams in the league this year at the start of the year. And the last couple games against good teams, they've absolutely dominated the games, and they did so against Winnipeg 6-3 tonight. It was, it was like they were playing the last two games instead of the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Winnipeg Jets. It was like the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks, the way the Oilers dominated these games. Tonight it was 17-8 on the grade A shots, and on the subset of 5 alarm shots, which are even more dangerous, it was 9-2 for the Oilers. So
9-2. Kind of hurts to give up more goals than 5 alarm chances, doesn't it?
Yeah, it happens.
In the end, but the third period kind of got away on them, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a little loosey-goosey out there and crazy, actually. And we'll get into that. So, Bruce, this is our two good things, two bad things, and two numbers podcast because it was a big and exciting Oilers win. We'll go with two good things each. It was, wasn't it? Why don't you start off?
There were 1-2 in the wild card race. I mean, 7-8 in the West. You don't want to be hanging around down there for long, and you want to put some distance between yourself and the other wild card team. And I think Edmonton's now 4 points in front with an immediate rematch coming up. But the worst they can do at this moment is a split, and they could get a 3-2 split, or much better still, they could just sweep this weekend series, and that would be make a statement. But lots of good things to enjoy about this game tonight, David. And I think we're each going to pick out a couple of goals. They're going to kind of be in a funky order because mine are in the third period and yours were elsewhere in the game. But the 5-0 goal that really kind of put this thing on ice. And the play here, the three-way passing play. I mean, this is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins' 30th goal of the year. For the first time in his career, 30 goals for Nuge. And Connor McDavid with the assist, and Leon Draisaitl with the second assist. And poor old big save Dave Riddick in the net for Winnipeg in the third after the Oilers blew out Connor Hellebuck. And I almost felt Riddick's pain here. I still remember him doing the stick toss in Draisaitl's face, and I bet your Leon does too. And that was a big mistake by Riddick. His career has been on a downward spiral since that moment. That was the pinnacle for him in a January game. Anyway, this was a play. I'm just going to go to the end of the play, the last three guys to touch it, which were the big three. And first of all, Leon had it behind the goal line on the left wing side, and he pulled a hard backhand pass right through his legs, right across the crease to McDavid in the far right faceoff circle. And one Winnipeg defender just tickled the puck and changed its direction ever so slightly. And Riddick, he kind of lunged for it and missed. So he's already kind of off balance and leaning to his left. And then McDavid collects the puck, and Riddick is pretty sure he's going to pound one on net, except for guess what? He doesn't. He goes right across the slot to Nuge on the other far post. And by this time, I mean, I said to my wife that Riddick reminded me of the running dog trying to turn the corner on the linoleum floor. He's just trying to get back across to face this deadly finish from Nugent-Hopkins, and he just had absolutely no chance. That was just another mastery of puck handling and passing by the Oilers. Like McDavid completely owned Riddick after Draisaitl made the great pass, and McDavid made a great feint and feed of his own, and Nuge buried it. I mean, what's not to like about that? Just a fantastic three-way passing play by three of the most skilled players in the game.
Yeah, they should have been playing the Harlem Globetrotters theme song after Draisaitl's between the legs, but
Uh-huh.
between the legs backhand pass.
Sweet
Exactly,
Georgia Brown.
exactly, Bruce. I mean, what a pass! What a player Leon Draisaitl is, and he really is showcasing. The last two games is the first time I think we've seen a completely, what I see as a completely healthy Leon
The
Draisaitl.
complete Leon.
Yeah, and I think he's suffered maybe from, like, I don't know if he got the flu when they got through it, because I think he's been
He
injured,
did have the flu.
sick.
Hmm.
That's how I take his play this year. Mainly injured for much of the year, and then more recently kind of sick and little off
Hmm.
his game is how I would see it. But
Hmm.
he seems like he's fully healthy and playing skating as well as he's skated in the past, which is, he's a fantastic skater, especially for a player of his size. And that's what I'm most encouraged by is to win the Stanley Cup, the Oilers need that Leon
Hmm.
Draisaitl. They're not going to win it with the Leon Draisaitl that we saw, as great as he was, second leading scorer in the NHL through the first 60 games of the NHL season. You're just not going to win it with that Leon, because it's so hard to win the Stanley Cup.
Well,
You
they need him
just
at
have to have everything
100%.
firing on all cylinders. You need him at center, for instance. So you can't shut down that top line so easily. You need, two options. The Oilers might actually have three good lines by the time the playoffs come around, but they really needed him flying, and that's what I love to see, Bruce. It's just Leon doing his thing, and the exhibition of skill that
Hmm.
he put on between passing and shooting, which you're going to get to. And your second good thing is just it's out of this world how he can play hockey. He's such a fine hockey player, and that's what we've seen the last two games.
What most encouraging for me, or one of the most encouraging things from this game, was the one time that we saw him at full throttle speed.
Yeah.
It was on the back check. And it wasn't even on a back check on a play where he'd made the mistake and was trying to, guilt is a great motivator, right? But it wasn't even his fault. They'd messed up the play on the other side. I think maybe McDavid and Bouchard got crossed up, and not for the only time in this game. And the Jets came out 3-on-1 shorthanded, and Leon comes screaming into the frame from the outside the frame to the right, and he just comes roaring all the way back, basically to just take out the third guy in the 3-on-1. And the rusher decided, no, I'm just going to blast it because I don't have much time. But just the speed he was overtaking the other Jets on a 3-on-1 jailbreak, and he was like going twice as fast as they were. This is not McDavid. This is Draisaitl. He was flying. And it's so awesome to see that. Like, he's an extremely powerful skater, and we just haven't seen much of that aspect of that game. And I think there's been a couple games this year where we see it for a while, and then he kind of puts it in check. But he there was just a reminder of how fast he can be when he's feeling it and he's at the top of his physical strength. And just fantastic, straight out speed, and the motivation to use that speed in the defensive direction, which is warmed my heart, frankly.
We haven't always seen that this year, but we won't get into
Well,
that
no,
right
or
now.
any year really.
Yeah. Well,
But he
anyway,
was +3 tonight, Leon, and let's just not get too far ahead on the numbers. For high danger scoring chances, he was 8-0 on ice, for 8 by the Oilers and 0 for the Jets. And I don't know what you've got, because you can tally quicker than I what he how many he was involved in for the Oilers versus against, but it would be similarly one-sided, I'm sure.
yeah, in terms of his individual
Right.
involvement,
Yeah.
he made a major contribution to four grade A shots at even strength,
Hmm.
and he didn't make one mistake on a grade
Right.
A shot against. And on the power play, he was involved in five
Oh, okay. So 9
major
altogether.
contributions to five grade A shots. Bruce, do you agree with my assessment? This is the first time we've seen him at a level that
Yes.
we okay. I
At
just
his very top level, yeah, the last two
all
games
right.
he's been great. And I think some of the motivation for him, frankly, is that the team has gotten serious about, bringing in some help, like stuff that was done at the deadline. And I'm guessing we'll talk a little bit about it at the end of
Yeah.
the podcast. But I just think that Leon's sort of thinking to himself, it's time to get down to business. This is our team. GM's, really really gone out and gotten an outstanding player to help us get over that hump, and I got to do my part. And, he just seems to be focused and right in there. And you can criticize him for not always being that, but it's hard. These guys are humans, and some of them have their foibles, and not everyone's Pete Rose. It goes every at bat the exact same approach, whether it's
Yes.
9-1 in the eighth inning or whether it's World Series on the line. Just the same all the time, and he's a little fair to say moody player. Does remind me of
Sure.
Mark Messier in that sense, and Mark had a lot of bad regular season games, and he always dialed it up when it mattered most.
That's what people
So,
forget about Messier. He wasn't always his didn't
oh
always
no,
bring his A game. Not at all. Like he had some bad defensive moments, lots of them,
hmm
just like Draisaitl. They're very similar players in a lot of ways, and I think, and this is why I stress the need for a healthy Draisaitl, because I think in the playoffs Leon can be unstoppable if he's bringing this game and if he's healthy. And even on one leg last year in the playoffs, he
yeah,
was nearly unstoppable. So just think if he's on two. Bruce, if he's healthy and the Oilers, if
yeah,
he's healthy, if the Oilers are healthy and they get some goaltending, they will win the Stanley Cup this year. They
okay.
will. With that's my
They're certainly in it with a
that's
shot.
my that's my take on it. And it starts the moment it starts. The true Stanley Cup run starts when Nugent-Hopkins stands up for Yamamoto. That's the moment that the Stanley Cup run starts, when they start to really battle for each other as a team. I just think that was such a huge moment, and it's not only it's a bit of a hyperbole me saying that, because obviously it starts the moment they draft McDavid, but coming together as a team is also absolutely critical for any team that's going to win the Stanley Cup, and you need that kind of team, someone taking one for the team. Like he could have got Nugent Hopkins was fighting a bigger guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he just took him on in Hull. And tonight, my first good thing is a Nugent Hopkins play, which was so indicative of his play this year, which has seen an increased level of him digging in like he's never dug in before. And it's the Oilers' third goal, which kind of puts the game out of reach, you'd hope. It's halfway through the second period, and he comes back on the back check hard. It's a 2-on-1, and he charges back and he takes the puck away and stops the Jets attack, which is just fantastic. Like we were seeing this kind of play all game long from the Oilers. This kind of hard back
50
check.
minutes of it anyway.
Yeah, much of the game until it got out of hand there. He pulls it off. Then he tries to make a stretch pass. It gets blocked, and then he makes another stretch pass. This time he hits Yamamoto for a breakaway. And I just thought Yamamoto's going to score because it was such a choice breakaway.
hmm
He had no one on him. He was breaking in hard just from the right angle. He had full control of the puck, and you just get that sense like he's going to score this time, and he did. He
hmm
made an absolutely gorgeous stick feint, and then put it to his backhand and lifted the puck up, hoisted the puck up. And it's very encouraging to see him have some success, Yamamoto have some success, because he's been injured repeatedly this year. It looked like he might be injured again from that hit from Justin Hall last game, which was a clean hit.
hmm It was.
It was a clean hit. If an Oiler had done it, I wouldn't be complaining about it. And but it was worrisome. But he was
Sure.
good to go, and he was flying out there. And then he scored right after again. It's just good for Yamamoto. Great for Nugent-Hopkins. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has stepped up as a mature leader on this team in a way he never has before for the Oilers. We've seen it in certain games now and then, but this year it's been game in, game out that Nugent-Hopkins has shown that kind of intestinal fortitude, where he just digs into the game and helps will his team to victories, and when they need him to do so.
Yeah, a fun part about that play on the Nuge back check was the play made by Matthias Ekholm, who was actually the guilty party on the pinch at the offensive blue line that enabled the 2-on-1. And he was scrambling to get back, and Nuge was scrambling to get back. And Nuge had a slight lead, and Ekholm from behind Nuge just reached out with a stick and pushed him. Just gave him a little boost on the, just sort of a second stage rocket boost on the way back. And it speeded him up by about maybe 5%. But this was, I've seen it before where the guy got the push, but in this particular case, I'm not sure Nuge would have actually made it back to pick off that 2-on-1 cross ice pass, but he had that extra little bit of speed. But I just like sort of the thinking and the sort of gamesmanship involved in that play. And Nuge took the boost and he used it it was like a power pill, right, in a video game, and he had just sort of this extra speed that he could go to come back and make that defensive play. And then, the one sort of pass that went nowhere, but then the second one that was diagonal pass from inside his own blue line to hit his winger at the far blue line for the breakaway. It's breathtaking. Like the game went from potentially 2-1 to 3-0 in maybe 6 seconds. Just completely turned around just like that. Incredible.
Wonderful.
Love
that
like that.
That kind of boost. I don't know if you watched roller derby in the 19.
Yes, I certainly did.
Canadian,
Skinny Minnie Miller.
There was the Canadian roller derby league, and they would do that kind of play. Paul the Bear Rupert, would give Jack Rabbit Johansson that push, and he'd go shooting forward, and that's what that kind of play reminds me of. I do that play in beer league hockey, Bruce. Only it's when guys of the opposing team get around me, I give them a hard push to throw them off balance. Let's not get into that.
But yeah, no, that was fundamental to roller derby, was this business of pushing. It's also fundamental to short track speed skating on the relays. They do that kind of stuff all the time. Where they give the guys a boost in the hips when they're tagging up. They're actually pushing them as they tag.
Yeah,
and it's an interesting strategy. Well, that's kind of what Ekholm did with his stick. Basically pushing Nuge in the backside to get back and make the defensive play, and he did. That was the best part of all.
What is your second good thing, Bruce?
Yeah, well, I can now move on to the 6th goal, and this was Leon again with this such an amazing play where he broke in and around Josh Morrissey and was going in on Winnipeg goal, and Morrissey, presumably thinking it's 5-1 in the third period and these guys have been skating circles around us, it's time to make him pay a price, took Leon down hard, right into the base of the goalpost. Like I didn't like how he went down. I was worried for a moment. The net even popped off its moorings. And Leon sort of looked around, got his bearings, and scrambled to his feet, and his eyes were just shooting daggers, And then he noticed that the net was off the moorings and the delayed penalty was on. The Oilers still had the puck. So he, first of all, had the presence of mind to grab the net and in one attempt perfectly put it back on the mooring, which the linesman usually takes them 2 or 3 tries to get it right with no pressure. And here he is in the middle of the play. Okay, fix this. Boom. Go stand over here. Get the puck. Boom. And by the time he does get the puck, Riddick has come over and he's left a hole about this big by his ear, and between his ear and the post, and his sort of mask was up and over the crossbar. But there was, I'm describing for listeners who don't have video, a puck-sized hole in the very top corner of the net short side, and zing, in it goes, right in this little tiny spot, right into the short side of the net to make it 6-1. And Leon, he didn't even smile. He just kind of got up and glared, and to played it cool like he often does. The eyes say one thing, but it was just sort of his typical resting face, let's call it that. And
resting Leon face.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. We'll call it that. And but what a shot! What a shot!
Wasn't it, Bruce?
Holy moly!
Oh God, I just love that, and it's his first goal too, which isn't one of our good things. Like he got us right under his armpit.
Yeah.
The first goal was an amazing one too. He, Bruce, a lot was made of his presence of mind. But if there's one thing that defines Leon Draisaitl during a hockey game, it's presence of mind. He's always reading the game. He's always 1 or 2 steps ahead of almost every other player on the ice. Mm-hmm. That defines Leon Draisaitl, both on the attack and on defense. And on defense, it doesn't work because he's overthinking instead of just fundamentally digging in and playing his position. He's often like, oh, well, how could I pick off the pass and get a breakaway, right? Like he's reading the play and getting a little too cute at times. But this defines Leon as a player. He is so cool and calm on the ice, and he is such a smart hockey player. If anyone was going to make a play, that play, it was going to be to put the net back on its moorings. It's Leon Draisaitl, because that's how he thinks. Gretzky was like that.
Yes.
Gretzky was a very, very
Oh,
smart hockey player.
analytical thinker while the
And
game was in process. Yeah.
and what's the other thing they have in common? They're the two. I don't know if Leon's the best passer of his era, but he's in the top three. I don't know. You'd have to look at Cale Makar's a pretty good passer. There might be some others that I'm not
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not mine, but Leon, that's how you get to be that great passer, is by having a total awareness of what's going on the ice. And we saw it on the backhand pass between his legs. I mean, it's just his presence of mind on the ice is out of this world. My second good thing is the second goal of the game. And again, the game's very much in doubt. The Oilers have had a lot of power plays. They're up 1-0. This is early in the second period. And it's just a breakout play up the boards. And I just liked how every player executed on this play, and including Matthias Janmark. And I know there's a segment of Oilers fans who don't think a lot of Matthias Janmark. I'm not in that camp at all. I think a lot of him. I think he's a very just an outstanding defensive winger. He's a good penalty killer, and he's got some skill on the attack. Not great skill. Like he's not, he doesn't have a great shot. He's not a great goal scorer or anything like that, but he can handle the puck, and he's willing to work. And on this one, his work up the boards makes a difference in advancing the puck up the ice. It goes to Draisaitl, who makes a really nice pass to Nuge, and Nuge kind of, I think, muffs the first shot or gives it away, and it comes, DeMello puts it right back to Nuge, so he gets a second chance. Meanwhile, Matthias Janmark is going to the end. He gets knocked down to the ice, but he gets back up again, and he charges in front of the goalie just as Nuge shoots. So there's a flying screen, and Nuge's incredible shot goes right through the Jets D-man's legs, I also think. So there's like a double screen in front of Hellebuck, and it's a great place shot, and it goes in. So all three of the forwards on that play made fantastic offensive plays, including Janmark.
Yeah, Janmark gets precious little love from some quarters, it seems like. And some people seem to think that he's utterly useless. And I don't see that at all. Like, he's not flashy, but he's smart, and he's a battler. He's strong on the boards, wins lots of battles, doesn't make a lot of dumb plays. And, he's just a fairly safe, smart, and I would say effective player. I mean, he's a $1.25 million veteran forward. It's not like they're paying him $5 or $6 million. It's not like I don't think we should be expecting him to score 30 goals like Nuge and Hyman are getting. I mean, he's not in their class, but he's a pretty useful worker bee.
And after seeing so many useless players signed at forward over the years at the Oilers, who come in and they just don't perform. I mean, I was expecting that from Janmark almost. I've seen it so many times where they sign a veteran guy and he just doesn't perform. He's just not very good. I've just been surprised from word go with Janmark. Oh, this is a player. This guy knows he's a smart hockey player. He knows how to play defense. He contributes on the attack. Right from the first time I saw him in the regular season after he was recalled from the minors. He's been doing well. And he's been part of a group of players, the bottom line brigade, who since December 1st have doubled their rate of goal scoring collectively. Like, they're getting twice as many goals per game as they got at the start of the year. And this has made a huge difference for the Oilers. Janmark and Costin, obviously, they're in McLeod. There's a number of them who have all picked up their scoring. Yamamoto joined that group tonight. The Big Five has been unreal all year long. And, Kane's been out much of the year. But, the Big Four, I guess, has just been kicking butt all year long. But what has made a difference for the Oilers in terms of trying to win more is players like Janmark and these other guys putting the puck in the net a little bit more, which is expected. They were really snake bitten at the start of the year. Bruce, your bad thing, what is it?
Yeah, I think probably knowing where you're going with yours, which would also have been mine, but I'm going to
Okay.
just go with the last, just sort of the sloppy play down the stretch. The Oilers seem to be well into the third period, dominating play and just doing everything right, swarming the puck. And I mean, I can recall one play. It looked like Winnipeg might be having a 2-on-1, and before you knew it, it was a 2-on-3, and the puck was battled out, from the Oilers slot, and it came up the boards. And I thought some jet's going to come charging up the boards, and nobody's going to be near him, and he's going to come in and slam a shot. Nope, the fourth guy back was also an Oiler, Nugent-Hopkins on this particular play, who cleaned up the before Winnipeg could recover, get any kind of cycle going, and then he turned and he passed it to the fifth Oiler, who was in center ice zone, and a safe exit, and pucks going in the right direction. They were doing that kind of thing much of the game, just being all around the puck, skating, using their heads and their sticks and their mind, their skates. Uh, and fairly dominating of the game, and then all of a sudden, with about once it got to 5-0, it kind of shut it off.
Yeah.
And there were some real kind of dog goals really that were scored by Winnipeg. That got three in the last 14 minutes to make the score artificially close. I mean, this actually was a bit of
Yeah,
a
you're right.
blowout, but Skinner wound up with a big three against him, and I think maybe one there was kind of a I think he was sort of was there a bad rebound? I think on the one.
Skinner gave up a bad rebound.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but
First goal against.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah, that was the one where McDavid and Bouchard
McDavid had
were
turned it
playing
over.
Alphonse and Gaston with the puck, and they were trying to hand it to each other, and they wound up both without the puck and not in any good position, and it just went downhill from there. And just a little focus thing, and it's I mean, obviously it didn't kill him, but if this was a two nothing game, not a 5-0 game, you can't afford to have that. Turn it off. You just no, don't do that. But mind you,
Yeah.
this was Oilers of the '80s. They used to do this kind of stuff all the time. It'd be 7-2 with 5 minutes left, and the final score would be 7-4. And we're saying, well, Fury didn't play that well in this game. Well, he probably turned it off too, right? Anyway, so that's
All
my
right.
minor grievance
They
about this game.
the Jets, as I said, only had 8 grade A shots, and it's in that 13-minute, 14-minute period that they get 5 of them.
Hmm.
So I mean, in the
Right.
rest of the game, they only had 3. The Oilers were totally, and
Yeah.
on a certain level, Bruce, I kind of liked it psychologically that the Jets came back. It took a little bit of their anger. They'll feel a little bit better about themselves, which I think is okay. Like maybe they'll be a little less motivated, totally motivated for the next game. But uh, um, there was one other aspect that you would have also picked as your bad thing. Um, was the Jets chippy play, and in some ways I admire the chippy, like if it was the Oilers down 5-0 and they started to get a little dirty and chippy and nasty and hitting over, like doing plays over the edge, I would probably like it, is the truth, if I'm completely honest. So I should say that, but when it's against my team, I don't like it, and I especially don't like when the referees don't call it correctly. That's what I think in the end. That's what bothers me more in some ways than what the Winnipeg players were doing. If there had been proper penalties, such as match penalties and game misconducts on at least, well, frankly, on maybe 3 of these plays that I'm going to mention, all 3 of them, maybe at least 2 of them,
Yeah.
um, I wouldn't be that angry. But the refs are negligent and incompetent at the same time, not calling match penalties. And I'm talking about Stanley's very dangerous and nasty hit on Derek Ryan, straight into the boards through the numbers. How that is not a match penalty and a game
Mhm.
misconduct is beyond me. There's Morrissey's takedown of Draisaitl, which was a bit more run of the mill.
It's
Um,
a delayed penalty. The refs actually called all three of these plays
yeah,
are
they
going
were
to reference, but they
penalties.
were all
Yeah,
minors.
and then
And
there
to me,
was
two of them were majors.
yeah, and then the third one, which in some ways Stanley's was the worst, but there's a Finnish player on the Jets, and I'll just pronounce his name. I think it's Meat-Hedalainen. Um, he cross-checked Philip Broberg in the neck, really vicious,
Right in the
absolutely
Adam's
vicious.
apple, eh?
Yeah, it should have been. It should have been a match penalty. He
Yeah,
just cross-check someone right in the neck with your
yeah.
stick in front of them. How is that? Just
The
throw him out
ref
of the
saw
game.
it. The ref saw it because he called it. And right at the standing one, that was my case. Chatting with my wife as usual, and I said, if the refs really want to cramp down on these last 10 minutes, they should throw them out. The score
Yeah,
is out of hand, and if they let that kind of stuff slide, or even just call 2 minutes, there's going to be more of it, and there was more of it. So I'll give the refs something of a pass in that they called all the penalties, and they didn't just sort of go blind because Edmonton had a lead and they'd had a few power plays already, and we got to manage the game. They called. Oilers went 2 for 8 in the power play in this game. So they scored 2 power play goals, and their percentage went down. I mean, I think they had a lot of chances,
yeah,
and in Winnipeg, they weren't very disciplined. They took a couple of dumb penalties, a couple of iffy ones, but these ones in the third were dirty.
they really were.
And they should have got more. And I hope player safety looks at it and at least slaps a fine on these guys, or ideally a 1-game suspension, since their next game is also against Edmonton.
That would be nice for Stanley to get that and meet Headalainen. Both of those guys should be out. Both of those guys should be out for the next game. That would be justice, and that's not going to happen either. Though they might get a fine. I could see
Maybe.
maybe. Yeah,
Maybe.
unlikely.
Mhm.
Bruce, your numero, what is it?
Yeah, well, I got 2 numbers and they're related. They're 3 and 4. And 3 is the number of goals that the Oilers scored against Connor Hellebuck in the last 4 games before tonight that Winnipeg played in Edmonton. The first 2 games of their 2021 playoff series, when Winnipeg won 4-1 with 2 empty net goals in the first game, 1-0 in overtime in the second game. Then last year I went to the game. It was best goalie duel of the year that I saw, and it was Hellebuck against Stuart Skinner when November of Skinner's sort of first run with the team, and the shots were something like 47 to 30 something for Winnipeg, and Skinner and Hellebuck went to a 1-1 tie right to the shootout, which Oilers won the shootout, but they only got 1 goal in the hockey game. And then the game here on New Year's Eve, a couple months back, where Winnipeg beat Edmonton 2-1 in regulation. So you add it all up, and other than those 2 empty net goals in the first playoff game, 2-1, 1-0, 1-1, and 2-1. So 3 goals in 4 games, compared with 4 goals in 2 periods tonight to drive Hellebuck out of the net for the third period. So a major change in fortunes for the Oilers against the goal. They used to own this goalie right through that 2021 season until the playoff series, and then he turned it around on them, and they scored a bit on him in Winnipeg, but for whatever reason, he's just owned the Oilers in Edmonton. Imagine shutting down Connor McDavid and company to 3 goals in 4 entire games, consecutive games from his standpoint. So that needed to be corrected. And a correction was issued in the first 40 minutes tonight to the tune of 4 goals, not to mention 3 crossbars and goalposts. And it was, it was a statement game delivered to Connor Hellebuck after he delivered several in a row to the Oilers. So,
Yeah,
that's my number.
Consider it corrected. All right, Bruce. My number revolves around Leon Draisaitl's one-timer shots. He scored that great goal that I referred to, the first goal of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fantastic one-timer shot from his favorite spot, which is seems like right on the boards.
Mm-hmm.
His office, right on the boards. He's just able to fire the puck in, get off this executioner shot where he lashes his stick at the puck in the net, goes down to one knee and fires it in. So we track these shots at the Cult of Hockey. So last year, Bruce, Leon Draisaitl got off 56 one-timer shots, and he scored 21 goals. 56 of them, 21 was for a 37.5 shooting percentage on the executioner shot.
That's pretty good.
This year, he's fired 35 harpoons, and he's hit the back of the net 15 times. So this year he's at 42.8% shooting percentage on these
better.
shots. And it's almost like, for a while there, earlier in the scoring chance project, when you would have a shot like that from outside, I would say, well, that's way outside the scoring chance zone, Bruce.
Right.
Like, you shouldn't count that. And you would always argue, no. Well, you would say, I think that he scores on a high percentage of those shots.
The
And
goalie's got
Bruce,
to move to get over there, and he hits the net. It's a hell of a tough save.
yeah, I'm here to tell you, you were correct, Bruce.
Thank you.
You corrected. I've been corrected, and yeah, you couldn't have been more right. I mean, when we're looking at a 40%, when we are looking at a 40% shooting percentage on these, and now we count, even if I don't think they, to me, it's just like, I wouldn't normally count that on any other player as a grade A shot.
Yeah, it's like Ovi shooting from the sideboards on a one-timer. He's going to make that shot, even though it doesn't look like he should.
And on our grade A shots, typically now I'm more open to looking at and you've made this argument all along, and I'm more open to it now. Like, let's, if it's Nathan MacKinnon shooting it, or Patrick Laine shooting it, or Ovechkin shooting, you have to take that into consideration, and you have to try to gauge that in terms of grading. We're doing this on the, we have guidelines and we have parameters and we have general rules, but we're also trying to be as smart as we can, as smart as the human brain, two human brains can be. Maybe there'd be. Anyway. Yeah, there'd be other human brains that would be a lot smarter on this than ours, but we're doing our best. We're putting
absolutely 100%,
and we're trying to get it right, and I think we are getting it more right, and it's amazing anyway what Leon's doing. It is absolutely astonishing, his accuracy. He has no time to get off this shot. It is a one-timer. The puck is often coming very fast, so he has the strength and the coordination to get off these shots, which, we've seen other players try it. Jesse Puljujarvi, Nail Yakupov, Taylor Hall try to get off these one-timers. They're just not. They're not. Hall's a little bit better than those other two guys, I should say. But no one comes close. Connor McDavid tries to get off one-timer shots. No one comes close to being able to execute this like Leon Draisaitl, who is with Jari Kurri in their own class in terms of this kind of shot. I wonder what Jari Kurri's shooting percentage. I bet you it was around 40% as well, which is why all those years Jari Kurri shot about 25% year after year.
4 years in a row he was over 25%, and 7 years in a row he was over 20%. I mean, it was not unsustainable. You look at the number and you say, well, he won't be able to sustain that, except he did.
So yes, there is such a thing called sustainable shooting skill. It does exist, and we are seeing it in Edmonton. And I remember earlier in the days of analytics, there was some like, well, some people took a fairly hard line on this, and they said there's no such thing as shooting skill. Like, it's just it's the number of shots you put at net, and certain percentage go in, and if you're high above that, it's unsustainable. And I think people generally have moved off that. You don't hear that anymore.
No,
and Leon Draisaitl is the reason why. One of the reasons why.
Yeah, well, sometimes you hear that a PDO of 1,000 is expected, which is just shooting percentage plus save percentage, where both teams shoot at the same rate. You would have a 1,000, and that anything way above that or way below that is luck. And I'll grant you, much of it probably is luck and the randomness that we see in hockey, but some of it is very much sustainable. And sometimes it's just if you have, a goalie that's just way above the standard, your team should have a PDO higher than 1,000, because your goalie is going to stop a higher percentage of shots than the other goalie's going to, or all the other goalies combined are going to. And similarly, if you have a shooter with a particular skill, or for that matter, even a terrific playmaker with a gift for setting up very high quality scoring chances, you would have a expectation that they're going to outscore expectations. This is why you see a guy like Leon Draisaitl and you look at his expected goals column, which is just sort of saying this is where the shots are coming from. You should score at this rate. And his actual goals for percentage is higher. And it's higher because he both scores more with his own shot and he sets up a higher grade of opportunities for teammates to shoot than the average. And so Of course, it's his results in the real goals column are more than expected by comparing him to average because he ain't average.
I
So,
remember the first we heard the argument about unsustainable shooting with Leon Draisaitl as recently as 2018-19. I'm
mm,
going to suggest his first year of scoring 50 goals. He had
mm,
scored 25 the year before,
yeah,
and he had scored 25 goals on 12.9 shooting percentage. And the year he scored 50, he had a 21.6% shooting percentage. And I
it's
think it
barely
was,
changed since.
yeah, and his shooting percentages have since then have been 19.7, 18.5, 19.8, and 19.9. He's a model of consistency in terms of shooting around 20% right now. And I think that year we started to make the argument at our blog that
Hmm.
we thought it was sustainable because we're charting this and we're seeing this trend in his
Hmm.
shooting. Like
Yeah.
he's just able to sink these
Hmm.
shots. He gets a certain kind of shot, one-timer shots. I think it was one of the impetuses to start tracking the type
Hmm.
of shot. We've evolved our system of tracking grade
Right.
A shots over the years, and we track more stuff and we track things differently than in the past. But it was one of those moments where we just started to realize that, yeah, there really is sustainable shooting skill, and Leon Draisaitl has proven that.
And to be fully transparent, we only count shots that are on goal.
Yes,
So when he
there's other
hammers a shot
one-timers.
like that and misses the target, which happens, a fair percentage of the time because the target's about this wide from the angle he's looking at it, and he misses the target, well, we don't count that as a scoring chance. So we only count the ones that are on goal. And if you were counting all the ones that he shot from there, then those percentages would go down, but they would still be high, I would submit, because he hits the net more often than he misses it. And he hits the net almost as often as he hits the goalie.
That's a good point. And of course, shooting percentage is also based on shots on net rather than
Yes.
just total shots.
Shot
So, but
attempts.
yeah,
Yeah, in the Finnish
yeah,
league, they do it on Corsi, and the shooting percentages are way low compared to what
well,
we're
that's
used to
interesting.
seeing in other leagues. But the number of shots credited to the player is way high because they're counting all the attempts. So it's just another way of doing it. And we didn't have advanced stats from the Oilers age. We didn't know what they were. But I spent some time in the when we were first doing this sort of thing, looking back to the Oilers of the '80s. And of course, we didn't have individual stats at all. We didn't have Corsi or Fenwick. We had shots on goal and we had goals. But every damn year, the Oilers would have a PDO of like 1050, where their shooting percentage would be 5% higher than their opponents. The Oilers shot over 15% as a team 7 years in a row. That's pretty
Wow.
sustainable. And they led the league, I think, all 7 of those years. I know there was one year where the second place team, Philadelphia, behind the Oilers, was closer to the last place team than they were to the first place team. The Oilers' gap was just so much that they were just off in another area. Their shots were just that much likelier to go in, and if they came even close to even level shots in a game, they were pretty strong bet to win it.
I remember you making that argument earlier in this, when that debate was raging about a decade
Hmm.
ago
Yep.
about whether there's, whether shooting is a skill or whether it's just,
Hmm.
pound the shots at net and a certain percentage are going to go. And you were saying you brought up the Oilers of that era, and it always made sense to me what you're talking about.
Well, we saw it. I mean,
We saw it.
they took
Yeah. Yeah.
high danger shots, and they were deadly shooters to boot, and they buried a lot of them. You know,
Yeah.
so
Alrighty, Bruce. By and large, though, to give the other side of the argument credit, by and large, when people on a hot shooting streak, it's not sustainable. Like
yes.
Clean Costin this year, for instance.
Hmm.
He's got 10 goals. He's been really good shooting. He's been like unbelievably hot shooting. But do I think he's like Leon Draisaitl? No, I don't think it's sustainable. And I think anyone raising that, like, be careful about giving Clean Costin a contract based on this kind of goal scoring rate. They're making in general, you're making a really good point when you make that argument. It's been actually one of the primary contributions of, I think, that analytics movement is to make that argument. And 90% of the time, probably 80, 85, 90% of the time, you're right. Maybe even
Hmm.
higher than that. The players like Draisaitl are the exception to the rule. And I think Clean Costin's going to fit within the rule, is my guess. Even though, like, he looks so good and his shots look so good, but I don't think it is sustainable. and they should pay him with that in mind, and be careful about giving him a longer term contract based on his goal scoring rate this year.
So, did you want to talk a little bit about the trade deadline and the?
Oh yeah, we could talk about. Excuse me. We've already talked about Ekholm, but they did make another move.
Yeah.
They brought in Bukestad. He's about, what is he? 6'6", 210. He's a right shot center. Gets in hard on the forecheck, I hear, has a good shot. Brian Lawton was saying he's got a really good shot. He's had years where he's had he looks like the typical 10 to 15 goal scorer per year, kind of third line, fourth line player. I don't really know his game at all, so I'm limited in what I can say about it. But I do like the idea of a great big center coming in. And I was trying to remember, when was the last time, if ever, have the Oilers ever had a 6'5" center? And someone pointed out the obvious, Jason Arnott from the 90s. He was 6'5", and they also had Bonsignor, who never really made it, who was a high draft pick, and he was 6'4". But Arnott didn't last long here, and the Oilers, this kind of player can have an impact on a game. Like I think having these big guys out there helps in tough playoff games. And I like to see him go head to head into the face-off circle against a big tough guy like Adam Lowry, for instance. And so that I like the idea. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I I like a lot about the player in theory, and I can't say I spent a lot of time studying him play games, but I look at his stats. He's got 260 points in 599 games on a per 82 basis. That works out to 17 goals, 18 assists per season, 35 points. And out of all that, he's only got 19 power play goals in his career. So it's not like he's feasting off his special teams, and the large majority of his goals and points come at 5-on-5. So that's pretty good production for a guy, mostly down the lineup. He plays most years, he's around 13, 14, 15 minutes per game. So he's been a regular, but not a top six guy that, normally see in the 18-minute range. And he can play right wing. He can play center, but a right shot center, which the Oilers kind of needed. And he kind of checks a lot of boxes. He was killing penalties in Arizona. He's sort of 48% on the faceoff dot, which isn't great. But when you don't have any, you've got one right-hand shot and little Derek Ryan, to have another option, a big, someone you can put out against the Adam Lowrys of the world, as you were saying, isn't the worst thing. And here's the thing about this. People have been ripping on Ken Holland a lot. First of all, for not doing anything, or then being underwhelmed with his moves. Well, this is what happened at forward for the Edmonton Oilers at the trade deadline. The first trade they made, they sent out Jesse Puljujarvi. Every cent of his $3 million contract got sent out, and the 5-goal scorer. And I love Jesse, don't get me wrong, but just consider these as numbers. 5-goal scorer, $3 million a year. Traded away, none retained, no big salary coming back, but a small asset, a probably grade B prospect. And then 2 days later, Holland goes out and he trades for a 13-goal forward who can play right wing, can take the same position, even bigger than Puljujarvi, older, more experienced. He's going to have flaws, no doubt. I mean, he might be the next Alex Chason for all I know, but he had flaws, but he also had uses. But here's the thing. He goes on the payroll at 50% of $900,000 that he's earning, $450,000 for a 13-goal scorer to replace the 5-goal scorer that was $3 million against the payroll. With those two trades, Oilers created basically $2.5 million in cap space, and they used that cap space to bridge the difference in the contracts between the defenseman that they traded, Barry out at 4.5, Ekholm in at 6. Well, you need $1.5 million to do that. Well, he created that $1.5 million by making that trade. And, he's got a player now on his payroll that's got a cap hit of $450,000 in a 750 minimum league. And of all the trades that he's made at the deadline now since uh, uh, the year that Clefbaum first went on LTIR, he's brought in five players, and every single one of those players had retention, and four of the five had 50% retention. Only Ekholm with the little 4% that just created enough $250,000 that they needed. And literally, the cap hit that's remaining for the Edmonton Oilers right now is $0. They spend as far to the cap as they possibly could. They were $165 short at the beginning of the season, so they can only go up to that, and that's where they are today, right at that tight as possible to the cap. And they've got 22 men on the roster that was down to 20 and using emergency players a couple of days ago. Well, now those emergency players are on the payroll, and they're not subject to getting moved out the minute someone else comes back. They actually have flexibility, and they can change roster from one game to the next again, and operate like a normal team. And I think that's there's some pretty tidy management in there. I got to say it. And I know there are people out there, oh, but Ken Holland's asleep at the wheel. And one more thing to get off my chest on this.
Okay.
I keep reading on Twitter. Well, they always said they were going to go all in, and they didn't go all in. Damn it! I don't know. They got a nice trade for Ekholm, but. And I look at the team, and I look at the draft choices. Let's pull that back up under cap friendly. So this is a team that traded. The 2022 draft choices that they had, the first rounder got traded now, right? Ginger Beef.
Reed
Schaefer. He got traded in the trade for Ekholm. The second round pick last year was traded at last year's deadline for Brett Kulak. The third round pick from last year was traded at the beginning of last season for Duncan Keith. The fourth round pick from last year was traded the previous deadline for the big Russian there, Dmitry Kulikov. So all four of those draft picks got traded for veteran defensemen to help the Oilers right now. So they're gone. And you look ahead to 2023, and I'll just keep it simple. First four rounds, 2023 first rounder traded for Ekholm. They've got their second rounder. Their third rounder is gone. That would have been the trade for Bugstad. The fourth rounder is gone in the Ekholm trade. And even next year, the third and the fourth round picks are gone. And so they have mortgaged the future. I mean, what does all in mean? Does it mean trade every single one of your draft choices? What the hell do you want them to trade next year at the deadline if all the draft choices are gone? You got to keep some of that capital around.
And who are the terrible players that you want to replace anyway? Like I guess they don't. It's people who don't like Matthias Janmark who just think maybe I don't know. I disagree with their assessment of some of the players. I'm not seeing a lot of players who aren't very good on the Oilers. I see every player, even Devin Shore, who I've been picking on this year. He's been playing really well the last few games. He's been coming
to play after Logan Stanley tonight. Eh?
Yeah. He's been going for it. He's trying to earn another contract, and he's making his move. So I don't see the gaping holes that you needed to fix in this lineup. They did fix the one they needed. Kulak didn't step up. I like Philip Broberg a ton, but it's asking a lot of him to step up in the playoffs. And what did they bring in? A player who so far, his first impression on the team, Matthias Ekholm, he's just such a fine defensive hockey player. Exactly, a great big guy. Like they're huge on the blue line. 6'7", 1'6'7" guy, 2 6'4" guys, 2 6'3" guys, a 6'2" guy, and a 6'1" guy. They have probably one of the biggest blue lines in the NHL now. And I don't know what listen, there's only one other team that I kind of envy at the trade deadline, and it's not the New York Rangers. It's the LA Kings. I like them bringing in Joonas Korpisalo. And if the Oilers have a hole, let's it's in net. Like it's the potential for disaster for the Oilers is poor goaltending, and
Yeah. And you can
that's
hold
the
that
truth.
contract, the Jack Campbell contract, on Ken Holmes. It's on his
Yeah.
record. He's made mistakes. You know what? The first press conference that he came in here, one of the things he promised us was, I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to make more good moves than bad moves, is how we're going to make progress. And he made no bones about it. He said, you can't be perfect in this world. But I mean, the Jack Campbell does look like a mistake, and it might be a fatal one. But what
Yeah.
he's done at the deadline, when you talk about going all in, I mean, that was just an absolutely mammoth price that they paid to get Ekholm. But
Yes.
boy,
Yeah.
does he look good.
He does look
And
good, and they have Stuart Skinner, and
mhm,
he is playing well. Like he's been at least league average. I think he's above league average goalie in
yes,
terms of save percentage this year.
yes,
He's a fun. He can. You only need one goalie to win the Stanley Cup because goalies
as long
tend
as
to
he's
play
healthy.
often they play
Hmm.
every game in the playoffs. So it might not be the thing if Skinner can step up, or if Jack Campbell can somehow rebound, and he's going to have a number of starts for the rest of the season. We'll see how he
Hmm.
does, and he did have a good stretch of 6 or 7 games where he played well. So it's not that much, and it hasn't been that encouraging. But as many people say, goaltending is voodoo. And as bad as Jack Campbell is this year, maybe next year he will rebound and he will be back next year. He's not going to be bought out this summer, not on that length of contract. And they need to see if he can come through next year. And if he can't, maybe he'd go to the minors then, right? At that point, and maybe see what else happens. But he'll be back and maybe he'll rebound. But you're right. At this point, it looks like a loss. So this is why I was a little jealous of the LA Kings picking up Korpisalo.
Yeah,
Um, he
that was a
he
killer of a trade, David.
really
You had to
was.
be a cold-blooded son of a gun to trade out Jonathan Quick after all those years to Columbus of all places. But just look at the cold-blooded results. They had a big problem in net. They got Jonas Corposalo, who's been playing well, as Edmonton fans can readily attest.
Yeah.
$1.3 million on a show me contract that expires at the end of the year, and he's looking to show whoever, and now he's going to show the Kings what he's got. They had a big problem at left defense. They got a ton of good righties in LA. Not a lot of left-handed D-men, except your favorite Mikey Anderson, and they brought in Vladislav Gavrikov. They sent out Jonathan Quick at full salary, and from that trade, not only did they fix two problems and sort of get rid of a problem, that Quick was having poor results, and he had the sort of legacy with the team. Now that's severed. So they actually came out of that trade solving two problems, and they were plus $1.7 million in cap space from that trade. Now that is a trade. So with all the difference between them, of course, and our trades, we were dealing. The guy we got had term, buying down term. And there's so many problems with that. You just have to pay kind of full price. And the Kings, they had a bad contract in Jonathan Quick. The Oilers don't have any $5 million contracts. Well, save the goalie who's got 4 more years to run. They don't have bad ones. Those guys are mostly delivering the goods. Well, Kings had a bad one. They moved it out. They got two players and cap space back that are all going to help. And that, to me, that's the trade of the deadline.
Yeah. I
Cold-blooded son of a gun made that trade. And I blame
and
my friend Rob Volman, who's in the analytics
well,
business with the LA Kings, and that is something that a cold-blooded analyst would say. Yeah, we got to do this.
apparently Doughty. I didn't see this, but my buddy was telling me that Doughty and Kopitar were just choked,
Uh,
absolutely choked to see their good friend Quick, and I hope they are, and I hope it destroys the team. Um,
well, in that case, it won't be a good trade.
yeah, it won't be. But here's the thing about Korpisalo, Bruce. There may be, just because of our a cognitive bias on our part. We've seen Korpisalo so good this year in two
Stone
games,
the
right?
Oilers
He's
twice.
absolutely stolen a couple games from the Oilers, and but he's a career 903 save percentage goalie. Last year his save percentage was 877. This year it's 913.
Mhm.
So he's not Bernie Perrant. He had, he's had two fantastic games against the Oilers, and he's been about the same as Stuart Skinner overall this year. save percentage, if you just go by that, which is fairly decent rule of thumb measurement of a goalie. So we might be. I'm just saying we might be overestimating the beneficial nature of that trade just a little bit, and I certainly hope that we.
But he's hot and the contract's expiring, and it's just a better solution than what they had, which was Phoenix Copley and fading Jonathan Quick and that guy Cal Peterson, who they had high hopes and invested a big contract in. And he's in the minors. He was so bad.
They still have his contract, fortunately.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So anyway, they brought in Corpusalo, and they, anyway, that was a trade that really stood out to me for value.
Yeah, I agree.
Short-term value, but it made the Kings a lot more dangerous, and that's very relevant in the Pacific Division.
Cal Peterson has 2 more years left on a deal that pays him $5 million a year. Yes.
That sounds familiar. The dollars, anyway.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, Bruce. Fingers crossed. All right, we'll be back tomorrow night with the.
I think Campbell's going to go tomorrow. I guess Hellebuck could probably, because he rested the third period. They'll go with him, but we'll see how that goes. Be nice to get the sweep. That's for sure.
It would be nice, and it would be nice for Jack Campbell to have a good game. He did have a good run of games there, and then he's kind of regressed the last few. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking tonight, Bruce.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast. Stop it.